Alright, round 3 for Modern here. We have Jelle on the left. He's playing his signature Elder Deep-Fae deck. Now, for those of you who haven't seen Jelle play yet, the deck is a mono blue deck that revolves around trying to get to Elder Deep-Fiend as well as Mistbind Click as soon as possible to tap your opponent's lands, possibly their creatures, and use that tempo advantage to suddenly close out the game. His opponent is playing a deck that a couple years ago was very much in style, which is Mardu Midrange. Now, of course, that deck lost a lot of points when Faithless Looting was banned. He did gain some points again with the printing of Seasoned Pyromancer, which not only helps you in the draw aspect, but also able to make some tokens, though it's definitely not on the same power level as Faithless Looting was in the deck, for sure. That being said, the deck still has a fairly decent game it can play. Kroxa is another card that the deck definitely wants to see. Definitely a strong addition here. Looks like we are discarding Repeal on the side of Jelle here. Repeal. Interesting card. Usually only shows up in like big blue mana strategies. Something like Bluetron that is able to get more mana in than the opponent, and in those situations it's a very powerful card. Here it's still a good tempo card, and tempo is really all Jelle is looking for here. Just live long enough to actually start doing some things. We have Very Seer coming in here. It's gonna scry 2. Looks like both of them went to the bottom. I think both of them just went to the bottom. I'm not entirely sure on that. Let's see, we have Colligan's Command coming out for our mid-range player here. It's gonna get spell pierced. Really doesn't want his only threat to get destroyed here. Gonna come in for 1. Just a bit of pressure here. The off-land we see in Jelle's mana base here is Riptide Laboratory, I think. That is Riptide. Yeah, Riptide Laboratory. A lot of these fairies also happen to be wizards, which means you can do some shenanigans with picking it back up, like when there's a Smiting Helix on the stack. Smiting Helix, another great addition to the mid-range deck. It's 4 mana, for 3 in the black, it's a Lightning Helix, but the flashback cost is actual Lightning Helix, so it's an interesting card, for sure. The front end is probably a bit too expensive, but again, the deck is mostly based around just discarding the cards you don't want to cast, right? Like if you're not doing it at 3 mana, if you're not doing it at 1 mana, you can still do it at 3 mana. It's not ideal, but it still has a lot of that power. Looks like another card we're about to see here, another banger printing, is Dragon's Rage Channeler. Are we going to? Maybe. Just thinking about it. What else is there? There's a Lightning Bolt. I think I see 2 Seasoned Pyromancers beside. Yeah, we are going to see Dragon's Rage Channeler. Just another banger card. Looks like he does have Delirium, so that is a 1 mana 3/3 with flying. Flying also a very relevant piece of text there against Jelle's deck, which consists mostly of flyers. Is going to get countered, looks like. I mean, Jelle was thinking about it. He was thinking about it. Because it does leave him open for something. Seasoned Pyromancer, looks like. Gonna discard Lightning Bolt, Seasoned Pyromancer, and then draw 2. It's possible the Lightning Bolt would have also been a correct play, but you know, you kind of just want to use the mana you have. And ending the turn with 2 mana and not being able to do anything with the 2 mana is not really what you want to be doing, especially against a tempo deck. You just want to be fast. I'm gonna swing in for 2 here. Going to 13. Beautiful art for Spellstutter Sprite here. And now with the Riptide Laboratory, Spellstutter Sprite could go back to the hand and then come back into play here. Jelle does have plenty of mana for that. He might consider using it to stop the Inquisition here, depending on what he has in hand. I think I saw an Elder Deep-Fiend, and I think 2 counter spells? That's an interesting choice here. Like, do you use the Spellstutter Sprite, or do you use a counter spell? Because one of these is a lot more flexible. Looks like the answer is going to be counter spell. It's not ideal, but I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? Still does have a counterspell up. That would have been the downside of using Spellstutter Sprite. It's just it uses all your mana, and at that point, like, you're holding 2 counterspells with no mana to actually cast it. This way, he can still save at least one of these creatures, as well as keep open a counterspell, or just pick it up during the end step for value. Because, you know, 1/1 is not the best clock anyway. Right. Now, Elder Deep-Fiend, of course, has the Evoke ability, which is great if you have... No, wait, is it Evoke? And it's Emerge. Sorry, not Evoke. Too much Evoke. The last, what is it? 8 to 10 months? Like, ever since Modern Horizons 2, Evoke has been everywhere. Kaya Scout coming out is gonna make Jelle sacrifice a creature and make a 1/1. Jelle decides, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. So, fair enough. Mardu player going to 12, and not really has a whole lot going on here. Now, should be able to make some 1/1 tokens if he decides not to use his mana, but it looks like he is. Interesting. Or maybe a 5-color spell that he's looking to cast here. Could be Fury. Fury wouldn't be the worst here. Also wouldn't be the best. Because the Fairy Seer can always just come back to hand. But the important thing here is that a Fury would be a clock. Now, instead we get Thoughtseize. Now, is that going to get countered? Possibly. Our Mardu player is hellbent, so we know what's coming potentially. It could be a smiting helix that is in the graveyard. That is something to be wary of. Spellstutter Sprite is coming down, is going to counter it, which is... This is all we need. Oh no! Of course, we could just recast Kroxa. Completely forgot about that. It's been so early in the game. It's gonna force Jelle to discard Pestermite. So, last card in hand, I think, is Elder Deep-Fiend for Jelle here. Looks like the draw was Brazen Borrower. Is gonna come in for 2. Kind of close here on just closing it out. Yeah. Jelle declaring he wants to use some effect during the upkeep, just to put a bit of fear into his mind, and then just passes priority anyway. Sneaky, sneaky. I see you. Now, the way Emerge costs, the way Emerge works is you can sacrifice a creature to cast Elder Deep-Fiend, and then you can reduce the alternate cost by the mana cost of that card. It looks like we are getting Elder Deep-Fiend here. I look away for 1 second. Is going to tap all the creatures of our Mardu player here, so no swing in. Is going to be able to use Inquisition of Kozilek to get rid of the Brazen Borrower, not the worst. Smiting Helix is going to take care of the Fairy Seer, just a bit of damage off the board. Now you're tapped out with a 5/6 staring you down. So now we have a 5/6. Our Mardu player stepped out, but the Smiting Helix did bring them back up to 12. And the tempo advantage is kinda in the middle here. Because Jelle still has a fairly decent clock, but the question is this clock actually going to be enough here? Notably, Elder Deep-Fiend does not have any kind of evasion, so any victory for Jelle here is going to involve answering Kroxa. Jelle decides to pass the turn here, realizing that attacking is not the greatest thing to be doing. Gonna flash in Spellstutter Sprite on attackers, and then just takes it. Where it takes 3, right? Off the Kroxa trigger, because he has no cards in hand. Uses it to block the Spellstutter Sprite to block the Kroxa, and then the Elder Deep-Fiend to block the Seasoned Pyromancer. Then I assume takes another 2. And creates a bit of an opening here. Oh yeah, actually not only blocks with the Spellstutter Sprite, but then bounces the Spellstutter Sprite. Interesting. We have Smiting Helix going towards Jelle's face here. Yeah, was just one damage short of killing the Elder Deep-Fiend, which would have solved the problem in its entirety. So Spell Stutter Sprite is going to be able to answer Kroxa for a bit here. It's 5 mana, don't take combat damage from Kroxa, specifically. Not the worst, not the best. I think the draw for the turn was another Elder Deep-Fiend. I think that's what I saw. That could potentially do some things here. Was it? Yeah, that is Elder Deep-Fiend. So Jelle is gonna come in here for 5. He's gonna put... I think that puts our Mardu player at 7? Did I miss the life? I think I missed the life gain on the last one. And then at the start of the next turn, Jelle emerges the second Elder Deep-Fiend, which is not only a blocker, but is going to tap a bunch of things here. Could just tap off of Smiling Helix here, I think. Going to activate Castle Lockwine to draw a card, since a bunch of these lands are getting tapped anyway. As well as the Kroxa is getting tapped. The Smiling Helix. The sorcery. That's very important as well, because you can't just... You can't just cast it at instant speed. Very, very important difference here. Now our Mardu player almost attacked into a Elder Deep-Fiend that was on the field. But, of course, that is a different Elder Deep-Fiend, so it is still untapped. And is going to pass the turn. I think that is a Mistbind click. That is potentially good? No, not good enough. Our resident judge Jelle decides, no, this game is a wash. Let's just go to game 2, because we can keep extending this, but he doesn't like his odds. He doesn't like his odds, so we go to game 2. Alright, for game 2, both players are gonna keep their 7s. And definitely we saw the power of Kroxa in that game. Inquisition coming out, immediately gonna get spell pierced here. Jelle quite comfortable with the cards he has and would like to keep those. Not even gonna give me a moment to think and talk here. Another Inquisition is gonna get spell stuttered. So, from the sideboard of these players, on the side of Mardu Midrange, I am not too sure. I would assume some removal, maybe some additional discard spells that aren't in the main. If there are any Blood Moons in the main, I would assume those come out as well. We did see a very strong showing from the Riptide Laboratory as the third Inquisition comes down. That's aggressive stuff there. But yeah, despite the impressive showing of the Riptide Laboratory, I think there's just a bit too much basic land for our Mardu player here to justify Blood Moon, but we'll have to see. Now on the side of the fairies, what do we have? Could see maybe some chalices coming in. Maybe Tectonic Edge, though that's probably not the angle of attack here. There are a lot of non-basics, but at that point you're mostly doing it for the mana advantage, and I don't think that's the way to win, but I could be wrong. Could be wrong. Could be a couple extra Brazen Borrowers. Other than that, maybe some Graveyard Hate. Sure, I could see some Relic of Progenitus coming in. Try and get a bit of the value engine out of the mid-range deck. Just get rid of those Croxas before they become an issue. Get rid of the Smiting Helixes that were pretty effective during game 1. They did a pretty banger job. As well as Seasoned Pyromancer making a bunch of extra tokens that we didn't really see, but they were an option. Also is gonna potentially take care of the Dragon's Rage channel, or at least make it a lot less threatening. Let's see, we have land sorcery right now, so a ways off. Definitely a very aggressive start from the Mardu deck here. Forcing Jelle to bounce and then replay the Spellstutter Sprite to try and keep a little bit of action going here. It's not the worst at this point if you're already kind of behind in cards here. Jelle has had to answer a lot of discard spells this game. And not only is our Mardu player in a more advantageous board state, he is also putting on a lot of pressure on his own. Of course, the Surveil of Dragon's Rage Chandler is going to widen the gap here. This is what we're expecting to see from the Elder Deep-Fae deck. Just slowly getting a little bit behind before dropping a bomb and just completely throwing it the other direction. It's more about keeping the tempo going long enough to actually get to that point. A Mistbind click coming out here in response to a Kaya's Guile. Interesting. So let me bring up Mistbind click for those of you who aren't maybe familiar with Mistbind click. So the Mistbind click gets flashed in, is going to exile the Spellstutter Sprite. Oh, isn't actually going for the Edict mode. Oh, interesting. Actually went for 4 life and a 1/1 flyer. Was most likely hoping to block the Spellstutter Sprite with a 1/1 Spirit, which I actually kind of like, to be honest. Of course, that's not how it turned out. Instead, the Mistbind click is going to remove the Spellstutter Sprite from combat, and not really getting all that much value, because only 1 land was tapped, and it was during Jelle's turn, so not the greatest of value. But again, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, right? Now we do have instant in the graveyard for our Mardu player here, so the Dragon's Rage Chandler is at 3 card types right now. Importantly, not at 4. Doesn't have to commit to a suicide run into the Mistbind click, which is a very, very important factor here. Looks like we have double Colligus Command and a Kaya's Guile here. Does look like it. I think the Kaya's Guile is probably not the worst play here. Try and get rid of the Mistbind click. Yeah, he's gonna try and get rid of the Mistbind click. And is going to make another 1/1. And the question is, are you going to pick up the Mistbind click? I think so, yeah. I think there's another Spellstutter Sprite in the hand for Jelle here. Which means that if he bounces the Mistbind click, it should be pretty easy for him to rebuild. Could also just pick up the other Spellstutter Sprite here and try and get a little bit of a card advantage going here, but that is very, very mana intensive, I will admit. Does allow him the option to Spellstutter Sprite again this turn, should that be relevant, regardless of whether or not he picks up the Spellstutter Sprite. Interesting position, for sure. No, is going to let the Mistbind click die here off of the Kaya's Guile. Not quite ready to commit the board to saving the Mistbind click. Is he holding a... He's holding Elder Deep-Fiend and another Spellstutter Sprite, so I'm not quite sure what the threat is here. Now, I will trust Jelle's judgment on this deck. He knows this deck. That's for sure. But from an outsider looking in, I'm thinking, is there no world where you just pick up the Mistbind click? I mean, there has to be, right? He was thinking for it for so long. I'm thinking, why would letting the Mistbind click be the better play? I'm sure there's a world where that is the case. I just can't quite see it. Not quite sure what it is that we're afraid of here. Now, looks like we are going to draw off the Castle Lockwing here. But Mardu player does have a couple of cards in hand, so that's a somewhat costly draw. Not the worst draw, but somewhat costly. Jelle coming in for 5 damage here. And yeah, the damage from an Elder Deep-Fiend kinda stacks up real fast if you let it. Now, there are a bunch of blockers here still on the field, so we're not in any immediate threat, but of course, this is a deck that can potentially just lock you out of a turn or two. Like the way you use Elder Deep-Fiend as well as a Mistbind click can almost seem like you're playing against taking turns. Which means that putting your life total too low is a very dangerous proposition. We have a second Elder Deep-Fiend being cast here. Just hard casting. It does have flash, so very interesting flash in here. Hooligan's command coming out. 2 damage to face and discards the Spell Stutter Sprite. Dragon Rage Chandler still doesn't have Delirium, unfortunately, which means it is going to get blocked by the Elder Deep-Fiend. And are they, like, is our Mardu player 10? Is that what I heard? I'm not sure. Anyway, looks like that second Elder Deep-Fiend is going to be game 2 going to Jelle, and we are going to get game 3. And like we said, just tapping all your lands can kind of feel like playing against taking turns and just suddenly not having a turn anymore. Oh, Jelle there thought that he was the one starting, but no, he isn't. Our Mardu player lost that game, so they're the ones starting here. Gonna come in for 1 here. Then Kroxa is going to discard, I think that was Spell Stutter Sprite. Went kind of fast there. But definitely getting another fast start. Just off the back of a bunch of discard. Lingering Souls coming down for our Mardu player here. Another staple of the archetype. Something you can easily just put into the graveyard here. But is going to get counterspells. Counterspelled. Counterspells. No, it's not going to get more than 1 counterspell. That would be a very bad proposition. Now, the Surveil trigger of the Dragon's Rage Chandler is going to put Seasoned Pyromancer in the graveyard. Again, if that ever becomes relevant, that could end up creating a bunch of 1/1s. Seasoned Pyromancer. There we go. Oh. Sounds like there are still 5 minutes left in the round. Being called by the store owner there. Not sure if you heard that. We have Fairy Seer coming down, is going to scry 1 to the top, 1 to the bottom. And an Inquisition coming down. Are we going to counterspell that? No, we're going to Spell Stutter Sprite that. My bad. Yeah, Spell Stutter Sprite is very much a better card here. Nowhere near Delirium yet. We can try and get in for a little bit of damage. Gonna throw a land in there. That's 3. Can we turn it into 4 and activate Delirium at instant speed? What are we missing? We have a creature, land, sorcery. Yeah, we totally can. If there's any kind of instant, I think that sounds like a Kaya's Guile. That is a Kaya's Guile, absolutely. Bit of shortcutting there, not too bad. Let's see if I can get Fairy Seer on. I can't even type. Lord. There we go, Fairy Seer. Just for those of you who haven't seen it, I think it's also very good in ninjas in Pauper, because it is a common. Relic of Progenitus coming down. Gonna exile a card from the Mardu player's graveyard. won't turn off Delirium just yet. It will now, as it gets sacrificed. Actually, at 13 and now at 12. Oh yeah, and of course the hit by the Dragon's Rage Channeler. Another Kai's Guile coming in. Going to hit to 14, having lost Delirium. Shouldn't be too hard to rebuild. Gonna come in for 2. And a pretty close game here. Mutavault is going to get animated in an attempt to block the Dragon's Rage Channeler, but Kaya's Guile in response makes that a possibly dangerous turnaround here. Kaya's Guile being able to take out a land is particularly dangerous. Is going to force the Mistbind click out of Jelle here, which does save the Mutavault. But it does come at a cost here. Another land coming in here. Looks like Elder Deep-Fiend in the hand for Jelle here could potentially end up... Well, right now isn't really doing all that much. That is time in the round being called here. Another Dragon's Rage Channeler coming down. Seasoned Pyromancer coming down. Just gumming up the board. But as we saw in game 2... an Elder Deep-Fiend or a Mistbind click can make some very short work of this board state. Turn 1 now begun. Relic of Progenitus coming down is going to get cracked. Is going to force... or going to give a draw. Looks like we have double Elder Deep-Fiend and a Mistbind click. So potentially there is still things to be doing here. Yes. That is a lot of cards, but the Mistbind click is probably the best one here, and it's most likely going to be the enabler for any kind of line that Jelle may have here, but his time is quickly running out in more than one way. He's going to block one of the channelers, and then most likely going to champion the Mistbind click. No, he can't. It's 4 mana. It's so close, but it's not quite there. Turn 3 starting here. Repeal is the draw for the turn. Very, very close here. Oh yeah, I missed a bunch of damage. I think Jelle's at 6 right now. Gonna try and buy a little bit of time. Make short work of that spirit token. Could still go for the Mistbind click. Not that on board. Yeah. All he can really do at this point is play the Mistbind click at the start of our Mardu player's turn. Is going to tap all of his lands. We go to turn 4. And looks like both players have decided that this is a draw. Though, very, very close game in the end there. I honestly... Yeah, but both players agree, it looks like. If this game would have continued, then most likely Jelle would have won this. But as it stands, it is a draw.